Good morning, Year 7, especially to those of you who were away at Bewley last week. This video is for you if you were away at Bewley, or if you were here and you were a bit unsure still with the whole King John thing, because today you've got to write a speech explaining why you're so cross with King John, as though you were a magnate. And that's the first key word, magnate. That means a very powerful, important person. So you're talking about the barons, the bishops, the archbishops, those sorts of people who had some power in the country. They were really furious with John. And there's four things we looked at on Friday, and before actually, when you were here last time. One, how did King John's record in warfare upset the magnates? Well, mainly he kept losing. He kept fighting against France, he kept losing against France, and every time he did, he risked the lives of those who came to fight with him. Many people die going to fight French, so it's a great risk for these magnates to turn up and go and fight. But also he kept losing land, and these magnates will have owned land in France as well as England, so they were livid, and it cost a huge amount of money to go to war. And what a great waste if you're just going to keep losing. So he lost land in France, he lost Normandy, and they called him soft sword behind his back, and also Lackland. But not only that, he meddled in ecclesiastic matters, which is one of the other big reasons why you'll be cross with King John. What's ecclesiastic mean? Have a little think. Church. He meddled in church matters, he meddled in ecclesiastic matters. And what he meddled in is... Oh, the bell. Perfect. Well, it's your form time. I hope you're on time. I'll just wait a second. Good. The Pope chose his own Archbishop of Canterbury, the most powerful church position or ecclesiastic position in England. And the Pope said, right, I want this guy. And King John refused to accept it. And the Pope said, you must accept it. And King John said, no, I choose the Archbishop. It's my country. I'm the king. And so the Pope said, fine. If you're not going to accept it, I'm going to order all the priests who will listen to me, because I'm God's representative on earth, to shut the churches, not do any baptisms, no weddings, no funerals, until you accept my choice of Archbishop of Canterbury. Well, John was so stubborn he refused to do that, so the church stayed shut for 7 years. Now, nowadays, people who are religious will probably be a bit fed up. Most people who aren't religious or a different religion will be like, it's not a big deal. But then they were absolutely convinced that if they didn't get baptised, have proper weddings or funerals, they were going to hell. So this was really scary, and for 7 years they had to live under the fear that they might end up going to hell. If they think they had a child that wasn't baptised, he could be 7 and not have been baptised, and child mortality rates were high. Lots of children died when they were young, back in the Middle Ages. There was a very real chance that these children, who they would have loved dearly, might die and go to hell. So you can imagine the magnates were livid with John for him meddling and arguing with the Pope and causing that to happen. 3, how did John's taxation policy upset the magnates? Well, that means tax is getting people to pay you if you're in charge of the country. And I've already told you that the war thing was really expensive. So one of the way that King John could upset anybody, any king could upset anybody, was by taxing them too much. And King John taxed as much as he could get. Well, they say get away with as much as he possibly could. He made the barons pay huge taxes to fund the wars. If they said, I don't want to come and fight in France, John said, fine, pay me instead. And the payment, the tax for refusing to come and fight, was called scutage. And it was huge, and it meant John got the money so he could pay for other soldiers instead. And if your father died, normally land would pass to you, or the land, the castles, whatever it is your father owned. If your father was a magnate, well, King John made you pay an inheritance tax. It was a huge inheritance tax. So that and also he changed it. It wasn't a set tax. If he liked you and your family, he might make it a bit lower. He got to set how much people had to give him, which was ludicrous, so they were upset about that. So just generally, he made them pay huge amounts of money to him, mostly to pay for wars that he kept losing anyway, which was a whole waste of money. And finally, his personality and his actions upset the magnates because he was unnecessarily cruel. He got upset with a particular monastery that had some monks in who were sick, blind, needy. He just chucked them out on the street. He said, "Nah, you're not staying here anymore," because they were in some dispute about him meddling with the church. And also, as you know from having done the stuff before, I hope you remember that he murdered his own nephew, who was a magnate himself, and lots of the magnates would have liked Arthur. He murdered Arthur in a drunken rage, allegedly. We don't know for sure that he did, but he probably did. There's only one person who would want him dead, and that's John, because he was a rival to the throne. So, he kept losing wars. He messed around with the church, arguing with the Pope, leading to it to being shut. He charged them loads of money, and he wasn't a nice man. These are 4 key reasons why you will be absolutely furious with King John. 4 things that you might get in your speech that you write today, that you finish for homework, and that we have a look at when you return, nearly 2 weeks from now.